will trickle in as we go along. So good evening to everybody that has joined us. And I hope we're going to have a very interesting discussion as to how we can encourage the young people in our dog world. And we certainly have some very knowledgeable people to contribute to that discussion. Thank you very much, Scarlett, for putting it all together. I really appreciate it. Just a few notes about the format. You will all be automatically muted, so the only people that can be heard are the people that are participating in the discussion. If you want to ask a question, if you just use the chat button, type it in, and we will start to answer the questions at the very end. Now, it would be helpful if you don't all wait to the end to put your questions in, because it's good to have them, have an idea of how many we have. And also, if you leave it to the end, there's a good chance the question won't get answered at all. So we will start with the introduction of the guests. And I know it's against protocol, but as he's the only gentleman, I thought I would start with Miguel Antonio Casellas Gil. What a name, Miguel, eh? Originally from Puerto Rico, he joined the dog world with his mother at 4 years old, so a very early start in life, breeding golden retrievers, smooth fox terriers, American cockers, and English pointers. Really quite a mixture, Miguel, wasn't it? And a few other breeds joined the mix on the way through. At 4 years old, you started to compete in junior handling competitions and ended up being runner-up in the World Show Junior Handling in Mexico. You then progressed to being a professional handler, and I have to say with some considerable success. You've handled dogs over all 10 of the groups, winning at 4 World Shows, Westminster, the Caribbean Winter Show. That's a pretty good compass of the world at all those different places. In 2013, the Puerto Rican Kennel Club granted you all breeds judge status. So that was another great accomplishment. And you currently serve as the Treasurers and Communications Officer for the Kennel Club of Puerto Rico, and have served several times to go as a delegate to the FCI conferences. You have recently, I think recently, I'm right in saying this, were appointed as the FCI Youth Founding Group, which is an initiative by the president of the FCI to see what we can do to encourage the young people to join the dog world. Away from the dog world, Miguel is a marketing and communicational based in USA. I think Miguel should be able to give us a great sight into the world outside of Europe as well as around Europe. And thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight, Miguel.
Thank you for having me.
He is talking from Florida, by the way. Next, we'll go to Marina. I think a lot of us will have seen her on our TV screens and live viewing, cutting a very glamorous figure. And I do wonder sometimes how she manages to stand so long in those heels and not fall over. I'm deeply envious of her, not to mention how long you and Linda managed to last in Amsterdam without having to go to the loo. That was quite incredible in the big ring. So you're well known for that, having hosted in such things as the World Show in Amsterdam, the Crufts, Big Ring. But to go back to your beginnings, you started the show when you were 6 years old. You won the Scottish, the British, and the World Winner Junior Handler titles in 2011. And not only that, but you carried on and competed in adult competition, which is very unusual, winning the Coventry Ladies adult handling competition. I think the only person to have done both adult and junior handling successfully.
Well, the first person to do it.
You've made up champions in Border Collies and Dalmatians, winning over 80 CCs amongst a variety of breeds. You give CCs in Beagles and Dalmatians.
Beagles and Border Collies.
Border Collies, sorry, I'm getting my you see, it's the Dalmatian on the screen. Is it any wonder I'm getting confused here, you know? not only that, but you've written a very successful book, Handling the White Y. And if that wasn't enough, you also produced and presented the very successful DVD, Marina Scott's Complete Guide to Junior Handling. You certainly are a very multi-talented young lady. You've judged the UK Junior Handler of the Year, the Finnish and Norwegian junior handling competitions as well. So you're definitely vastly experienced in every end, both from each end of the lead. You're currently working as an assistant to Liz Cartledge with the Young Kennel Junior, what do they call it? Young Kennel Club?
The Junior Handling Association.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
And you also assist with the junior handler in Crufts. So you certainly have contributed an awful lot back to the junior handling world. And I'm sure, again, you'll be able to give us great insight into the workings and what the UK has actually done for the junior handlers. So thank you very much indeed for joining us here today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
For listening to you. Nearer home, we have Linda. I don't think you'd be any stranger to on the screen. Born with, actually like myself, both parents, all breeds judges, successful exhibitors. So it was hardly surprising that you took to the dog world. But you decided, having nagged your parents at 7 years old, they finally gave in and got you a whippet. And that whippet started a lifelong love of the breed, which continues to today. And you've been hugely successful with the whippet, winning CCs in England and making up, I don't know how many champions you made up over here. But you've also handled your parents' Skye Terriers, Spores was. And I think you might have had an odd other breed in there somewhere as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
You are approved to judge 5 of the FCI groups. And not only do you show and judge, but you also give a lot back to the show world because you organise an all-breed show. Fair play to you. A headache you haven't had last year.
As you know.
Absolutely. You have also worked on the IKC Judges Committee for many years. And 3 years ago, you joined the board of directors of the Irish Kennel Club.
Yeah.
And you are now turning your attentions to see what you can do to help and encourage the young people in Ireland. So we look forward to hearing what your views on what you think will help and what we aren't doing to help our juniors. So thank you again very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you giving us your evening. And finally, to the lady who put all this together, Scarlett Burnside. Thank you very much indeed for doing this. We really appreciate it. In actual fact, you started showing at 14 years old. So compared to the other 3, you were actually quite elderly when you took to the other end of the lead, didn't you? However, that didn't stop you, did it? You certainly have accomplished an awful lot in your short life. You started with Alaskan Malamutes and of course your mother's Neapolitan Mastiffs and Dogue de Bordeaux. I have to say your mother was a great help to me over judging Dogue de Bordeaux. You'll have to thank her for me. You not only won successfully in Ireland and England, but you and your mother traveled the length and breadth of Europe and made up multiple champions all over Europe. You have handled dogs across all of the 10 FCI groups. But I guess what we know you so much for here is representing Ireland in the junior handler competitions. And my goodness, haven't you done us proud? I mean, winning the Crufts Junior Handler International Competition, I think we were all hitting the screens watching you. Words couldn't express it. And as you've had experience of, Marina, in the past, when the Irish are behind you, they're behind you. They would lift the roof off you. So huge congratulations. And thank you very much for actually doing the country so proud. You also were Supreme Junior Handler at Split as well. You've currently started your own business, Canine Scarlett, which is basically all to do with dogs, both training, handling, conditioning, you name it, and you're hopefully going to help people out for it. And you also you're no longer considered a junior handler, though still quite junior looking on this screen, but you also would like to contribute back to the world of junior handling as much as you can. So anyway, that's enough of listening to me. So I'm going to hand over to our host for the night, Scarlett Burnside, and enjoy the evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say thank you again to Anne and Jared and the whole Munster Agriculture Committee for helping me set this all up, and of course to Linda, Miguel and Marina for accepting to do these interviews for me. So I'd like to start with Linda. What was your involvement in junior handling?
My involvement in junior handling. I was one of the founder members of the Junior Handlers Association in Ireland. We struggled at the very early stages to convince our kennel club that it would be a good idea many moons ago to have a Junior Handlers Association. But with the help of our current president, Sean Delmar, and my mother, Anne Cuthbert, who spoke for us at the time because we were only little children, they managed to convince the powers that be that it would be a good idea and they wouldn't breed a precocious little lot of handlers. So that's where it all started. So I was on the original committee, and we ran it all ourselves. We used to have meetings in each other's houses, and we had great times. We really did. There was the Delmar boys and Paul Scanlon, and we were all just kids, the Walshes, loads of us, and it was great camaraderie, great times, and it does me good to see it still going at this stage. It's fantastic to see that the association is still in action, still flying, and we have fabulous representatives and great handlers in Ireland. So very proud to have been at the very start of it, and very proud to still be part of it as the years go on.
Yeah. Following on from that question, do you have any involvement in the junior handling now?
I do. I've had involvement on and off through the years with the junior handlers, even after I left it. And I did well as a handler myself. And then through the years, from my kennel club position, I've been backwards and forwards with the handlers. This year on the board, I've been asked to oversee the handlers again. And we've got a few ideas in mind of how we'd like to go forward. And unfortunately, this little virus has put a stop to our gallop. But as soon as things calm down again, we'll be straight back at it and hopefully moving on with a few good ideas to keep everybody involved.
That's great. Thank you. Next, Marina, what is your involvement with the Junior Handling Association and YKC? Like, what are the differences?
Okay, so I've been Liz Cartledge's assistant with the JHA for more than 7 years. I was very grateful to her to allow me to speak on behalf of the JHA in this interview today. It's an incredible privilege and honour to work with Liz. She's obviously been the organiser for the Junior Handling Association for, many years, 70 odd years. It's ridiculous how long. But it is an incredible privilege and honour to work with her. And to be honest, I was quite starstruck when I began to work with her. She's so dedicated to the younger generation, and I admire her so much for all of her canine achievements, but particularly the Junior Handling Association, as I grew up with it as well. She's great fun to work with, and we can have a real laugh too. And anyone that knows her on a more personal level know that she's really got a wicked sense of humour, and she's very, very funny. As a competitor of the JHA myself, I met Liz many times, and I believe we struck up a really good bond early on. I was working as assistant editor at Dog World when my involvement grew with Liz and the JHA, and we worked hard along with Adrian Marriott at Dog World to move the JHA semi-finals from Richmond Championship Show to the National Group Championship shows. I mean, the main reason for doing this was to make the JHA semi-finals more accessible to all juniors around the UK. Richmond was originally based in Ascot in Berkshire many moons ago, which is obviously in southeast England. And then ultimately it took up spot even further south to Guildford in Surrey. So the dates of Richmond Championship Show was the week after many children went back after the summer holidays, and thus prevented quite a lot of children from taking time off school to compete in the Richmond semi-finals. But we are so very grateful to Richmond Committee for allowing us to host those semi-finals there successfully for many, many years. The JHA's basically dedicated to solely the junior handlers aged 6 to 16 years of our hobby. The Young Kennel Club, or the YKC, covers all aspects of dogdom, from agility to flyball, obedience to breed, and of course show handling. And the other main difference is that the YKC is for members aged between 6 and 24 years. So there's an additional 8 years you can enjoy as a young handler with the Young Kennel Club that at the moment you can't with the Junior Handling Association.
Yeah, thank you. Miguel, what is your current involvement in junior handling?
Well, first of all, Scarlett, thank you for the invitation and for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you. Currently, I'm part of the board of directors as a treasurer and a communications director for the Kennel Club of Puerto Rico. I also split my time living between Puerto Rico and the US, so that limits my current involvement with junior handlers back home in Puerto Rico, but we still as a Kennel Club have the infrastructure and the instructors to keep encouraging kids from all ages to participate in our activities, not only in conformation, but also obedience, agility, and other modalities that we have active right now. Of course, like Linda was saying, with COVID, everything went on a hold. Our focus right now is how we're going to get all these kids involved once again with the sport in a post-pandemic world. It's going to be very different with people not wanting to be together in tight places or in activities. So we have to come up as leaders of the organizations, not only focus on how we're going to bring people back to our activities, but how we're going to keep kids and youngsters and young adults involved in the sport. So that's the focus that we're paying right now to make sure that we continue growing as a sport amid all the negative effects of COVID, not only in the country, but around the world. So reimagining the sport after the pandemic, it's one of the biggest focus we have right now. And of course, the junior handling in the participation of young people, it is very important for me personally, because who I am right now today, it's thanks to all my experience in the sport and what taught me throughout the years since I began when I was a puppy. So it is part of I want other kids to be around the sport so they understand how this sport can be beneficial for them. And for all my friends that I've made throughout my years showing dogs. So I want to bring back to the sport kids and families so we can continue what we were doing before. So that's the focus right now.
Okay, thank you. Linda, can you explain how junior handling works in Ireland?
Okay, our junior handling age group is from 10 to 18. We have 3 age groups. We depend on the All-Breed Championship shows to run the handling classes at the shows. So the children compete in their age groups and they get points for their placements on the day at each show. They must pass a certain figure to qualify for the final. And then the final is run annually for all the children, and our winner goes to represent us at Crufts and I think the European winners. So it's a fairly basic setup. It's one that I would like to see stretched in both directions, because I feel that we could go, I feel that we could go a little bit younger and maybe a little bit older. So for the moment, that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. Marina, can you explain how handlers can become involved in the Junior Handling Association and YKC?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, I'm only sort of speaking on behalf of the Junior Handling Association, although I was a member of the Young Kennel Club as well. And obviously, I have quite a lot of involvement with them, but I don't have as much organising involvement. So I just want to make that clear at this stage, if that's okay. But with the JHA, new members can simply get in touch with Liz Cartledge at her very famous Ruislip Kennels in Berkshire and request to sign up for an annual membership. It's a very modest £4 a year. The Young Kennel Club has an online booking form on a very extensive website, which has grown over the years, and it really is very, very fantastic to go through all of that. You pay a small fee to become a member. Anyone with any experience can join both. Just a love of dogs is all that is required.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Miguel, what achievements and awards can junior handlers achieve at the European Dog Show and the World Dog Show?
Well, at the FCI European Dog Show, at the World Dog Show, and the Avery Section Show, not only in Europe but also in America and in the Asia Pacific section, it is important to know that you have junior showmanship competitions on all of them, because it's part of the regulations of this section shows and the World Dog Show. And the FCI has very clear rules on how to put, organizers need to include the junior showmanship competition on this official event. So you can be the World Junior Handler winner at the World Dog Show, and also you have the section Junior Handler winner title as well when you participate in the European Section Show, the Americas and Caribbean Section Show, or the Asian Pacific Section Show. Yeah. So those are the official titles that the FCI has for junior handling competitions. Of course, each country regulates their own national junior showmanship competition. But from the FCI perspective, those are the official titles that the FCI can offer to junior handlers at this competition.
Okay, thank you. Linda, what can junior handlers successfully achieve in Ireland?
At the moment, they'll compete through the year, and the highlight of the year is our junior handling final. So for the top junior handler in Ireland, it is the ultimate goal is the trip to Crufts, to the final at Crufts, to the world final at Crufts, and then to the European Winners' Show as well. I think the handlers sent out to that one as well. So they are the goals, and it's strong competition in Ireland. We have a good standard, so as you know, and so that at the moment that's where we're at. So hopefully we'll be able to expand on that in years to come, but that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Marina, what opportunities competition-wise are available for junior handlers?
So in the UK, there are JHA qualification classes available at almost every Open and Championship show. If you win a first, second, or third place in your respective age class at these shows, so we split them into 6 to 11 years and 12 to 16s, you qualify by winning first, second, or third in either one of those age classes for the JHA semi-finals, which, as I said earlier, used to be held at Richmond Championship Show. We moved them, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago to be held at the National Group Championship shows. So, for example, BUBA, British Utility Breeds Association in December, UK Toy, which is around about March, then National Terrier, which is around April, National Working and Pastoral Breed Society, which is around July, Hound Show and National Gun Dog around July, August. So once you get to there, that's the semi-finals that are held at those group shows. Win your age group class at one of those shows, and you qualify for the JHA UK Handler of the Year final held at Discover Dogs in the autumn.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, can you briefly explain what FCI Youth stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the FCI Youth started as an initiative of then President of the FCI, Rafael de Santiago, as an initiative to evaluate the involvement of young people in our canine organizations around the world. So it started as a working group from people from 7 different countries. I was one of those initial representatives that started the FCI Youth, and I was part of the group with other members from Portugal, Finland, Latvia, Mexico, and the Philippines. So we started a group to really understand how that involvement in every country. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't only about junior handling or junior showmanship competition. That was part of that. It's part of the most important, and it's one. I think it's the most important part of the FCI Youth. But we also wanted to make sure that these kids that were competing in junior handling, they would stay after they finished their career as junior handlers and they started their universities or professional careers. We wanted to make sure that these kids didn't leave the sport, but they rather stayed with us in different capacities. So we worked not only as a working group, but with the objective of having an official FCI Youth committee as part of the FCI. And then after a few years, it became an official commission of the FCI, approved by the General Assembly, that every single country was going to be, it's going to be able to send a representative rather than just an individual group of 8 people. Of course, with COVID again, everything is on hold because that first meeting never happened. But I'm sure that President Jackal has a very deep commitment to the youth, and that is going to happen once everything goes back to the new normal. But within the FCI Youth, we were able to actually review all regulations by the FCI for the World Dog Show and section shows. We wrote recommendations for judging junior handling, and in our mission was to actually have one set of rules or universal rules for every country to follow or try to follow. Because of how the FCI works and how it's organized, it's very difficult to implement rules for each country that are not on the international level. So that's why we created recommendations and not rules. Now, as part of the objectives of the new commission, probably that's going to be part of their priorities, is to regularize the junior handling competition rules. But as for now, and they're all available on the FCI website, we have recommendations for judging junior handling a junior showmanship, and how the competition should be organized. So, but the main reason that the FCI Youth was created was to incentivize the involvement of young people like you, Scarlett, in the sport, so we don't lose the sport and we don't have a gray hair audience or no disrespect for anybody, but we want to bring young blood to the sport to make sure that the sport continues for generations to come.
That's great. Thank you. Linda, do you think junior handling is supported enough by individual kennel clubs?
Yes, I do. I think we see year in, year out the amount of representation each country has at Crufts at the final. So obviously each kennel club is supporting their handlers. I think there's always a little bit more that we could do. We definitely need to do something to hang on to our handlers as they come, in Ireland especially, towards the end of their junior handling career. Our junior handling finishes at 18, and I find that once you reach the 18 mark, it's then is when we lose the handlers. A lot of them will move away from the sport as they go to college and move on in their own lives. So it's trying to keep the interest there. So I think that's where the kennel clubs need to look at things, need to try and keep them through those years where they might just slip away from us to me, those years are 18 to 25. I see people coming back at the sort of 25 age where they've, you know, maybe gone through college, done what they wanted to do a little bit, and then they sort of creep back into the sport. In the UK, they have the YKC, which holds on to the handler a little bit longer, and then the youth thing in the FCI will be absolutely brilliant to hold on to the handler a little bit longer. So with that in mind, I think, yes, the kennel clubs could do a little bit more to keep the involvement there as the handlers grow on in age. But I think there is a lot of support definitely throughout Europe and the world for handling, because most kennel clubs realize that they are the future of our dog world, and without our junior handlers, we don't have a dog world. If they go, we don't have a future. So yeah, I feel they have plenty of support.
Okay, thank you. Marina, did you do junior handling, and if so, how long were you involved?
I did a little bit of junior handling. No, I was very, very fortunate to be interested in dogs from an early age, as there were beagles and border collies in my family home. I started actually competing probably around age 9, although I was probably on the end of a lead by age 6, but actually going into a ring probably not until about age 9. And I asked my mum if I could come to the odd show, because that's what she was doing. She was breeding and showing dogs. She had competed in working trials with a border collie, and breed showing as well with her beagles for many years before I came along. I began by using our veteran beagle called Purdy. She was actually a dial-in, and she featured actually as a set of my mum and dad have just recently moved, and we were just moving things around, and there's lots of plates and memorabilia with this particular litter in the 80s, and there's one little puppy amongst these 3 of this particular litter, the P litter of this dial-in. And yeah, we found them all the other day, but it's that dog who I started showing with. And Purdy helped me with the basics, because she was a very steady veteran beagle, and it was the best way to learn. My mum was totally instrumental in teaching me about having a good attitude, and I'll talk about that later on. But and I learned as much as I could by reading Jackie Hurley's junior handling book. That was, you know, totally influential to me. I soon caught the traveling bug, the showing bug, and as a teenager, yeah, every weekend you find me at a show or traveling to one every weekend with our pack of beagles. It was 1997. I was age 16. I won my age group at the Richmond JHA semi-final under Phil Freer of the famous Switzerland Basset Kennel. I competed a few months later at the then Pedigree Chum UK Junior Handler of the Year, when they used to be held with the Champion Stakes finals and the Veteran Stakes finals. I was very, very privileged to go to one of those. So I competed there with Purdy's daughter, Kissy. The judge at the UK Handler of the Year at that event was Steve Hall. I handled a champion Welsh Springer in the swap dog section, and I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it when he pointed to me, and I still talking about it, it gives me absolute goosebumps to actually end up as the winner. This result meant that I had the opportunity of competing at the World Dog Show in Helsinki in Finland in June 1998. As obviously there was no pet passports back in those days, it was impossible to use your own dogs from home in the UK. So I had the opportunity of picking a breed, and I thought, well, let's see how we go with an Afghan. And so I did lots of practice up in Scotland and drove hours to local ringcraft casters where there were different breeds, and there was other people with Afghan hounds. So I did loads of practice leading up to it with different Afghans. And I went to the World Dog Show in Finland, and the judge there was Australian judge Graham Misson. And yeah, could not believe it that I was the winner out of that amazing lineup. Following these wins, obviously I used my gap year between school and university to write a book on junior handling. Obviously it's called Junior Handling the White Way because my maiden name was White. And I published and launched that in 2001, just a month before I started university. So I got the Mickey taken out of me at university, having like some sort of funny book they all thought it was. You can imagine what non-dog people think about our hobby is sometimes. But in my 20s, I then organised and started launching many junior handling training days where I taught the newer generation, so the up and coming younger juniors, and started doing loads of training days with my handling friends. And in some cases, she was a rival in those days, Helena Hutchings, who some of you may well know of. And then I joined Dog World newspaper and had the opportunity with them through their Dog World TV channel to produce a DVD version of my book, Marina Scott's Complete Guide to Junior Handling, which was published in 2011. Very, very fortunate the DVD still sells lots today. The book still sells all around the world as well, and they're all available. Not that this is a shameless plug, but if you want to find out more, you can go to my website, juniorhandling.co.uk.
That's great, thank you. Miguel, did you yourself ever compete in junior handling?
Yes, I did. Like Anne said in my introduction, I started in the dog world when I was around 4, but my mom actually started way earlier than that. She was one of the people who helped develop the sport in Puerto Rico. Then when she was going to have me, she retired for a little bit. And when I asked for a dog when I was little, she then said, okay, it's time to go back to the dog world because this kid is going to like dogs. So I practically grew up in a kennel or in a crate. So because I was on every single dog show around. So I started working, handling a very cute golden retriever. Of course, I was super short and my dog was a giant compared to me. But it all started in Puerto Rico. We have like the pre-juniors, and those are from 4 to 6 years old, and it's just for fun. And I started there, and I then continued competing throughout the years until I was 18. But it wasn't more than just competing in junior handling. It was, well, my friends from school were playing basketball or football or baseball. I was training dogs with my mom, not only in conformation, but also sometimes agility, obedience, and that became a lifestyle. And of course, I was fortunate enough to grow up with great people and very well-known people in the sport, not only back home, but also around the world. And they were like mentors for me. And it was not only working with dogs, I also got involved in the Kennel Club and organizing dog shows. We were like 10 junior handlers that organized like a little club to organize and help the Kennel Club organize some national shows. So we were trying to become the next generation that was going to take over the Kennel Club. And at some point, and we're actually doing it because right now on the board, 3 of the board members were former junior handlers, or we grew up in the sport. So it became that family that you want to keep together and you want to succeed. And that was part of my decisions with what I wanted to do when I grew up. The obvious choice was I was going to be a vet because I wanted to work with dogs. But unfortunately, I'm not very good with science, and I couldn't be around dogs suffering. So Rafael de Santiago was the one who told me you should be working on advertising and public relations. Of course, he has an agency. He used to have an agency back in Puerto Rico. So I started working with him and studying my profession today. But I always went back to the Kennel Club. So I always want to be involved in what the sport is. And my experiences in junior handling, not only in Puerto Rico, but also competing in the United States, in Latin America, it helped me develop relationships and friendships throughout the world that I treasure today, but I also use it in my professional career as well. So it's more than was just competing in the ring was the fun part, But outside the ring, we were friends, but also we are thinking about building a life for the future. So we did it in a way that we can keep being connected to the Kennel Club, but also provide the tools or the knowledge that we have to grow the sport and grow the organization. And that's why I'm still involved. That's why I wanted to be part of the FCI youth and just try to make things better for the younger generations that are also enjoying the sport.
Yeah, thank you. Linda, do you think junior handling as a whole has progressed positively?
From an Irish point of view, I think it has to a certain level, but I think we've been at a bit of a standstill for the last few years, and that's why I feel we need to do something about it now. Just to encourage the children a little bit more, keep them there. Yeah, we definitely need to do a little bit more. I think other countries definitely are doing maybe more than we are. I think it's definitely a positive sport. It definitely keeps the children involved, and I think it's a great hobby for any child to have. It teaches them such a good husbandry of animals, just to look after their own dog and to relate to their animal and everything. I think it's really good. But yeah, I think we could do a little bit more. Definitely we could.
Yeah, thank you. Marina, what was your greatest achievement in junior handling?
Personally, I think nothing will top winning the junior handling championship at the World Dog Show in Finland in 1998. It is bizarrely, that's like 20 plus years ago or something. But it really feels like yesterday. There's nothing quite like it. However, I also had the opportunity to commentate at the World Dog Show in 2018 in Amsterdam with Linda I can't even say it now, Volarakova. I practiced it so much at the time, I can't remember now. Linda Volarakova, there you go, she'll thank me for that. So Linda and I spent obviously 4 days commentating there, but one of the most exciting aspects of commentating the World Show there was when the junior handling championship came into the ring. I could just totally relate. I could feel the handlers' nerves. We were stood right in the center of the ring as the judge was going around, and it just took me way back to 1998. I had the very best view of this competition, and I could totally feel the excitement. I could feel the nerves, and honestly, the ring was just awash with so many naturally talented handlers. Those very few robotic handlers, and I think you'll know what I mean by that sometimes you can actually teach a handler where to place a hand on a dog and perhaps how to hold a lead in a correct position. But it's like with every sport, sometimes you're either a natural at it or you're not, and you can try and improve on the naturalism. But if someone's got it and then you see them in the ring, they're just like poetry in motion, and they look absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, I was nearly in tears. I had to try and keep myself together and composed, but it was an amazing sight to see so many wonderful handlers from across the world, who all of them have got their own stories to tell, all of them studying at school, possibly wanting to be vets, like Miguel said. I'm the same. I wanted to be a vet, but I discovered that you needed sort of 70 A-star A levels, and I managed to get 3 A-star A levels and then the rest Bs. But I thought I'll go and be a TV presenter or a journalist instead. So but it's so I just thought it was just amazing. So yeah, personal achievement was probably the World Show, winning it myself, but actually now putting back into the sport as well is just phenomenal, to get the feedback and teaching young people from face to face. And then even my children now, who are 6 and 8, it's wonderful to see them, and not push them in any way. If they want to follow mummy and what she was doing, then brilliant. But it's really quite exciting, and it's exciting times. It's an exciting world, and even though it's really depressing and a really sad situation around the world, to me there's so much positivity that people like us who are getting together now, things will be good, things will get better.
I will. I'm pretty sure I was there as well that year. You and
I
Linda
think
were-
you were. I think you were, and I was
right
trying
in
not
the
to be
corner.
too biased when I said your name.
Yeah, I was like, oh, hello, not nervous at all. I've totally not done this before or anything, but it's new environment, new country. It still really, really gets to you.
You did amazing, absolutely amazing. It's hot. It's hot under those lights.
It is. You don't realize until you're in there. And you're like,
No.
thank you. Miguel, do you find there is a difference in junior handling judges around the world, and what they ask of a junior handler?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great question, Scarlett. The sport around the world is very different from in each country, of course. But when you go to a dog show in Europe, or you go to a dog show in Asia or in South America, everything is different. From the setup, although we all follow the same rules, but the ambience is different. The competition is different. The objectives of the competitions are different too, and the goals of the handlers and the owners are different. Some countries are more family oriented. Some others are very owners oriented. So it is very different. The junior handling competition, it's no different in each country. Some of them you have a more natural approach to what you're looking for, what the junior handlers do. Like Marina was saying, some of them are very natural. It's a very relaxed competition in terms of what you expect from the kid. Then you go to Latin America or in Asia, and they all look like very professional handlers with the baiting and showing, and it's a very different show, right? You go to Thailand, you go to the Philippines, you go to Mexico, Argentina, or Puerto Rico. They're very different from what you find in the US or in Europe. So having judges from around the world judging junior handling without understanding the real goal of the junior handling competition, it's a mistake. And I think it's a mistake that all kennel clubs do, including myself, because I'm part of a kennel club. Sometimes we have a judge, we can't afford to bring a junior handling judge just to judge 15 kids in a small country, for example. But at the same time, organizations, national organizations, we need to start doing better on teaching potential junior handling judges of what the mission is and why the kid is there and what we should be looking at these kids, at these teams competing inside a ring. And we should be able to standardize that teaching process for judges across every single country, or across the FCI, or across agreements between the FCI and the Kennel Club and the American Kennel Club and the Canadian Kennel Club. So because we need to be unified on what we're expecting from the kids in the ring. So and we see this a lot at the World Dog Show, they don't know what the judge is going to be looking for that particular day, because probably that, if it's from a different country, if it's from Austria or it's from Mexico, they're going to be looking for two different things, probably, because there's not a standardized process to judge junior handlers. At the FCI Youth, we created recommendations for judging junior handlers. And it was a collaborative initiative that was led by Catalina Molinari, because most of you know that she was a junior handler, and she's been judging around the world, including World Dog Show. So we wanted to make sure that it was a process that was fair and just for everyone, no matter where they come from. Of course, it will depend on national organizations to implement that and teach their judges on how to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Linda, why do you think junior handling is important?
Why do I think? Junior handling is very important. As I said earlier on, it teaches the children to have a connection with their dog. It teaches them the ways of our show world. It should teach them to be sporting. It should teach them to be supportive to their fellow handler. it's the basis of everything that we do in our dog world. And if we want our dog world to continue, then we need to encourage the children to stay. Without them, we haven't got a future. So I think it's very important. I think it's an excellent hobby for any child. Certainly better than playing on the streets, I think. But yes, no, it teaches them to be sporting, and definitely the husbandry of dogs and animals in general. It teaches them how to look after their animal, how to present their animal and themselves, have pride in their animal and themselves. I think it is an excellent discipline, and it should be supported fully by all our kennel clubs as we lead these handlers.
Okay, thank you. Marina, what breeds do you personally find easier for junior handling? You're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
I think this is a bit of a difficult one, because I don't think any breeds are particularly easy until you get the experience. I've always said to newcomers and young people who literally have no experience to start with a breed that suits your size and your stature. So it was quite interesting earlier when Miguel said that he started with a golden retriever, and you said how large it was, and it was, little you and this large breed. It was probably more tricky for you to get to grips with it because of the size of the dog and possibly the strength. The fact that whether you start with a dog that is a pet dog that lives on your street and someone says, oh, I heard you're in dog showing, give it a go. Well, that's different to a well-schooled dog that has been to ringcraft from a very early age and knows the ropes and knows the sort of ambience and the atmosphere and of a normal ring and a dog show situation. I've always said that a young handler who's starting out with a new puppy will always take a lot longer, as both the puppy is learning its craft as well as the young handler. So that makes quite a tricky combination. So it does seem to be the way of the world at the moment that, lots of people are getting new breeds and new puppies and things. And, it's great that young people and young families are bringing new dogs into their home. But, it's actually quite difficult to start with that young puppy because you're both learning too. Of course, you can read the books, read the DVDs, you can watch a lot of online resources to help you, but it is going to take you probably a little bit longer than actually hands-on practical experience. I think each dog within each breed can have a very different nature and character, and obviously are totally unique to when handling them. Some breeds require a lot of happy encouragement to keep their tail up, like a beagle or a Nova Scotia duck tolling retriever. Some need a more quieter and a more fluid style of handling, like the border collie, where you would be concentrating on using your voice at key moments to get expressive ears and a very low tail carriage on the move. Some breeds that in the waiting room earlier, you saw my Dalmatian, they need a crazy amount of babbling and funny noises to keep their ears forward and tails wagging. And then I love beagles because they were my first breed, because they're so versatile. You could teach them to freestand or part stack, or show them in a completely variety of different ways to suit how that dog is feeling on the day of the show. So, there's no right or wrong answer, but I think the best way is to be able to, a young handler, to start with a well-schooled, well-trained, calm dog that suits the size of the individual. My daughter's only 5. She's pretty strong. However, I'm not going to suddenly give her, my adult size Dalmatian who's very, very strong. She can have a practice in, hopefully when things open up in a few months' time, I'll be on the phone to lots of local friends who have got small breeds like maybe Pomeranians and Papillons that she can have a practice with that are more suited to her size. So yeah, that's kind of what I think anyway.
Would you pick a group? Would you say one group's easier than another group?
Oh gosh, no, because within each group there is such a variety. I do think we've got to appreciate that a young handler starting out at the age of 6 is not going to have the control and the strength to be able to hold on to, say, maybe a very, very strong breed that, even though it might respond to lots of food and bait, it might just look somewhere and just drag it out the ring. You have to be very, very careful as we start them young. Of course, I know plenty of young people, I can think off the top of my head, people like Michaela Dunhill-Hall, who was in the ring probably by the age of 5 and was winning a CC or making up a champion in Rottweilers. But then she's got her mother, Liz, behind her. She's got all those dogs to practice with at home. She could do that behind the scenes in a safe environment with her mum there. But what I think a lot of parents tend to do then when they come into junior handling in the UK, they read all the books and they think, oh yes, I'd love to push my daughter into, literally grab the child, grab the nearest dog, put them together and say, go on, in you go. Then the handler has possibly a bad experience. The dog might turn around and drag it out. They stand there crying. I don't wish to bring up my brother here, but this is kind of what happened with him. He wasn't really wanting to go into the ring, but my mum said, would you like to give it a go? Well, okay then. He was very, very young. He was different to me, not as confident. And he went in, Purdy, the same dog, didn't perform as well, and he stood there and went, yeah, and maybe he won't mind me saying this because we get on really well, but he did shed a tear and he said, yeah, no, it's not for me. He's never stepped foot into a show ring ever again. But it can be one bad experience that can put you off as a handler. And it's the same, the same happens for a dog. One bad experience for a dog in a show ring can put them off for life. So just build it up gently and gradually. And then, you might not compete for a few years. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go into a show ring. You could go to a companion show, a charity show, somewhere where, it's much more relaxed. But I think a lot of people tend to try and force them to go, all right, well, championship shows, you only have to be a member. So yes, you can go in the ring with that dog, but it's really not an ideal situation because a championship show, big atmosphere, everybody's watching. Until you get the experience, move up the show ranks, move up.
I know, because I know whenever I was I think I was in Canada and I was judging, and it was the youngest age group, and I can't remember what age group they were. Sherry might know because I think Sherry is watching. And the wee girl had a golden Labrador, and he was a big, stocky dog, and she was a small girl, and it didn't want to pay attention, and it wasn't food. And Labradors are usually food orientated. This dog wasn't interested, was dragging her around. So I know she did well. She ran him up and down. She got him moving. And then for the photo, I was like, right, the dog going under the table. I was like, I'll just grab that lead there and pull the dog over for you, get him to stop. I was like, right, with a young girl, I was like, stop pulling her all over. And he just looks and he's all like, oh, I'm fine, I'm happy.
Yeah, when the combination doesn't work, when as a bystander, whether you're stood there as the judge, the steward, you're a spectator, or you're like us that we've been experiencing it for years, when you're literally sitting and you're watching this child in the ring with a dog, and all you want to do is like come to their rescue and help them and just show them a few pointers just to help get the dog under control, it's probably unlikely to end well. But they shouldn't really be put into that position in the first place. It could simply be a very bad health and safety risk at the end of the day, because we're working with animals, and like they say in everything, never work with animals and children. Well, I do that all the time, but it's
that's daily routine.
Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Miguel, on a previous interview, I was asked, do you think judges should take seminars on junior handling? What's your view on this?
Absolutely. And I think that as judges in general, they need to have continuous education to learn about the breeds that they judge. They should also be learning about individuals who are showing their dogs, and they should be required. It should be required for judges to judge junior handling to at least have a seminar about junior showmanship, because it's sad to say that some judges, they judge junior handling just to judge it, but others, they really enjoy it and they really put the time to learn and understand the junior handling competitions. Other judges, they just judging because they have to, and they put it in their judging list. But I think that organizations national organizations, kennel clubs should be paying more attention to who's judging these competitions, because it's an experience for especially young kids. Like Marina was saying, a judge that doesn't have the knowledge can give a bad experience to any new person starting in the competition. So understanding why we have junior handling competitions, why it's important for the sport and for that individual, it's very important. So I think that every single junior handling judge should have at least one junior handling seminar under their belt as part of their continuous education.
That's great, thank you. Linda, there's been a lot of discussion on Facebook about allowing crossbreeds to be used in junior handling. What's your view on that?
Well, I put a lot of thought into that one myself when I saw it, and originally I kind of went, and then I thought a little bit more, and I thought to myself, what is our kennel club for? And our kennel clubs are to promote purebred dogs and pedigree dogs. So it's worked, I know, in Ireland for the last almost 40 years that children show pedigree dogs in junior handling. And to me, I really don't see why that shouldn't continue. I think there are other disciplines such as obedience, and in England they have flyball and different things, that if the children want to use a crossbreed for these disciplines, then they can do that. But I think in junior handling, we try to learn about our dog, we try to learn about our breed. Most junior handling judges will ask the children a question on the breed of dog that they handle, or the anatomy of the dog, or such as. But I think, you know, it has to be about promoting thoroughbred dogs. That's what we're about. I know that there is a lot of different thoughts about it, but I think at the moment, definitely, we have so many designer breeds and everything out there now, and coming from, I don't know, dodgy breeders and different things like that, that this doesn't need to be encouraged. And I think as a show secretary, I know when people actually come to me, general public, they might phone you and say, we'd love to come to your show to look at some breeds. Maybe they're looking for a pedigree dog. And they arrive at the show, maybe I've said to them to come to me in the office and I'll direct them to where they want to go. But usually when a family comes into the dog world first, they don't come in with the child expecting to do junior handling. They come in wanting to buy a purebred dog. They go to a show, they pick their breed, and from there, maybe the child sees then what they can actually do, and they work from there on. So I don't actually think that we are going to have a lot of issues with this, that you would get a lot of children coming with a crossbreed saying, why can't I show my crossbreed in junior handling? I definitely think they would start with their thoroughbred dog and then learn what they can do with that dog from there. But no, I think we must promote our thoroughbred dogs. We must stand over them. And I think to start to allow crossbreeds into our different sections would definitely undermine what we've built already. And it teaches children about their different breeds and what they have on the lead and how to handle each breed. And if you come to the likes of, Marina was saying about, going to the World Dog Show and traveling and not being able to bring her own dog and having to have another dog, there's a way of handling a certain breed. So what way do we handle a crossbreed? There's no said way of handling a crossbreed. So I think it brings all sorts of confusion into the game. And I think it's worked for as long as it has. And I think maybe it should stay this way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Marina, there are certain breeds when I represented Ireland at Crufts that weren't allowed to be selected. Why is this, and what is your opinion on it, as some handlers may be used to that breed and it may be the breed that they want to select?
So I'm talking on behalf of the JHA here, and not on behalf of my opinion. My opinion doesn't really differ that much, but basically the JHA, when we come to running the International Junior Handling Final, we discourage certain breeds from the international final, and this is really purely based on previous experience and how these previous breeds have performed, and dogs that have not performed, as the case may be. Many of the juniors can, as you well know, can be rather nervous, and they can appear at the international final dinner very confident in the night before, and then they look brilliant and they sound great when we're speaking to them. When you get step foot into that main ring at Crufts, it is quite different. It's quite different for the handler, let alone the dog. Now, many of the dogs that we take on board at Crufts obviously are normal show dogs who go to championship shows, week in, week out. So they're regular show dogs. However, even you can ask any best of breed winner who has made it to the group ring at Crufts, and you can probably have watched many videos of the groups at Crufts in years before and watch your own breed perhaps fall apart in the main ring, under those lights, with the cameras, the audience, the noise, the commentary, that sort of thing. And some breeds just particularly seem to not perform well in those conditions. So we wouldn't, for example, and this is, I've had a great discussion with Liz about this, so I can help shape the answer for you so you can know in future. But we would not dream of selecting an Afghan hound, for example, even though, and I remember when I asked for it in 1998 for the World Show, she went, "Are you sure about that?" And I went, "Well, yes, please. I've been doing lots of practice and I think I can probably pull it off." And I think I managed to convince her. I'm quite persuasive when I want to be. But when it comes down to Crufts, it's nationally, it's worldwide televised as well, as you know, and it's all on YouTube and everything like that. So in this sort of day, some of the more oriental breeds can be very stubborn and aloof by nature, and they just don't respond well to a complete stranger. As you know, that morning of the competition of the international, they don't have very long to get to know their dogs. The whole point of it is that so that they can go into the ring and show us what they can do with a new breed. So we need experienced, well-schooled, well-tempered dogs, okay? And sometimes you can't get those, especially if International Junior Handler of the Year final falls on say a different category of day. So one year it might be on Gun Dog Day, another day it'll be on Terriers Day, another on Hounds Day. And if you have a selection of those breeds set up and then it falls on different days, you've got often hardly any of those breeds available, because kind of the kennels and the really well-tempered dogs that you can sort of rely on, they're going to be showing in the breed rings. So basically we're just saying that it's a huge experience for any dog to go into the main arena at Crufts. And like I said, how many times have you seen a best of breed winner show actually not as well in the group competition at Crufts? It's because the main arena is so very unforgiving. It's an unforgiving setting with very loud commentary, huge audience and hot lights, among other things. So that is why it's we've had sort of 30-40 years, especially Liz, beyond my years as well, where she's sort of almost written a list each year. Okay, we probably won't go down that route again, because we want the handlers to do well. They've traveled all that way, they've taken time off school, they spent money themselves to make themselves look great. We want them to look as best as they can and have a dog that is going to be as successful for them as all the other handlers. We want basically 45 amazing performing dogs. But sometimes, as you well know, your dog at home might not just turn up on the day and actually be on its A game, because it just doesn't happen. Just like we do, we don't wake up every day on our A game. So we're trying to make sure that we can even it out and make sure that everyone has best a chance as possible. So hence why some breeds we sort of discourage instead of some others.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Following on from that question, you, as the UK, do allow crossbreeds in junior handling, if I'm not mistaken?
So, yeah, the YKC, I believe they have used crossbreeds for many years. I've done many training days for the YKC, and it was perfectly acceptable for crossbreeds to be used in the training days. And I've known a lot of young handlers in probably the last 10, 12, maybe 14 years. I've been doing training days that literally they only have a crossbreed at home. They haven't been fortunate enough to have family that have grown up in dogdom, and they've got this pet dog and it's their crossbreed, it's their companion, they do everything with it, and they just wanted to give it a go. So I believe that the YKC welcomed the use of crossbreeds actually quite some years ago. I can't actually remember off the top of my head whether they're actually allowed to compete at Crufts in the Young Kennel Club Show Handler of the Year. I probably don't believe so, because they're actually categorized within the YKC Show Handler of the Year on each day. So you've got all your 7 groups categorized. So I don't believe they're allowed to use there, but I think they're allowed if they qualify with a crossbreed by winning, say, a competition and they qualify for the final. I think they have to use a different dog, even if it's not owned by them at Crufts. I believe so, but don't quote me on that. The only other thing is that the JHA, we don't allow crossbreeds in the JHA diploma, the qualification classes at Open and Championship shows. Therefore, they're also not allowed in the semi-finals, because the semi-finals are categorized into all the 7 group shows, which obviously no crossbreeds come in those categories. And they're not allowed to be used in the national final or the international junior handling final. But it's the Young Kennel Club who I believe have been encouraging the use of crossbreeds, not encouraging it, but they haven't discouraged the use if that young handler or that family has only got a crossbreed in their family to use.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, could I just interrupt you for a moment here? I've had a few private messages as to how to ask questions. So just to remind everybody, there's a chat button either at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen, depending on what you're using to view on. And if you just type the questions in, we'll get them probably fairly soon, because you're coming, I know, fairly near the end, Scarlett. Okay, sorry for interrupting you.
You're
there.
fine. Thank you. Miguel, do you find junior handling differs continent to continent?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Do you find junior handling differs continent to continent?
Yes, absolutely. Like I was saying before, if you look at junior handlers, and my first judging appointment for junior handling was in the FCI Americas and Caribbean section show in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 2005. And if you were going to judge junior handlers in Latin America, they look like very professional. They act and handle dogs like a professional dog handler would do in the United States, because of the influence of the United States in all America. Then in Asia, that you have a lot of professional handlers as well. They also tend to look like more very exaggerated motions, and a lot of bait for grabbing the attention of the dog, throwing bait around the ring. So, and then in Europe, you all are more used to it. It also depends on what part of the continent you're looking at. So it is very different. So that's why it's difficult from an international perspective to regulate junior handling and to have a manual for junior handling judges. So that's why you have to be very conscious about where you're going to judge. Ask the questions to the Kennel Club about how the junior showmanship competition is organized, and if they have any national regulations for that competition. So it is very different, and I think the objective of the junior handling competitions in different countries is different too. So how in terms of how the handler looks and handle the dogs. So it is very different.
Okay, thank you. Linda, do you think junior handlers show enough sportsmanship towards one another?
Sometimes, and sometimes not. Yeah, I mean, I think in recent years, as the competition hots up, I think sometimes we're not as sporting, any of us in the ring, as we should be. It's got very strong in Ireland, and we have some very good handlers. On a whole, I think the children are fairly sporting. They are. I'm sure when they get to the very highest point and you're in the final and it doesn't quite go your way, maybe there's a feeling of, well, I was robbed or whatever. I mean, we all go through it, don't we? We've all had our days in the ring where, you know, we mightn't be as sporting as we should be. But I think in general, you know, you see it in all walks of life. You see it in all sports. I mean, on a whole, they probably are quite sporting, but of course we are going to have the odd day where somebody isn't and somebody gets hurt. But listen, we have to get on with it and try and teach the children when they come into the sport from an early age to keep that sporting outlook on the whole thing and realize that this is a hobby at the end of the day and it's not a way of life yet. And you know, so yeah, I mean, on the whole they are quite sporting, but I think we have to keep an eye on it, definitely. But I think that can be said for all walks of life at the moment. So
yeah. Thank you. Marina, every year Cross hosts the International Junior Handling Finals. Can you explain how that the process of how the UK would represent?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned it earlier, but didn't go the whole way. But basically, you have to win a JHA qualifying diploma at one of the hosting open or championship shows. So win a first, second, or third place at an open or championship show in a JHA class. Mm-hmm. This qualifies you for the semi-finals hosted at one of the national group championship shows. The winners of these classes go through to the final, the UK Junior Handler of the Year final at Discover Dogs in the autumn. So we end up with 14 finalists in the final in the autumn from the 7 different groups. And the winner of that, so the UK Junior Handler of the Year winner there, represents the UK at the International Junior Handling Final at the following crafts.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, what is your view on judges who have had no junior handling experience themselves, children involved in junior handling, being able to judge the competitions? You're on mute as well.
Oh, sorry. That's the new normal now. You're muted. So I'm all for ex-junior handlers participating as judges. I think you are the person who has the most knowledge about junior handling and how we used to feel inside that ring. So, you know, you understand the dynamic, you understand what it's going through the mind of these kids, trying to do their best to show their dogs to the best of their abilities. Mm-hmm. So I think that as long as is there a standard process within your national organization and how to certify ex-junior handlers that are 18 years old as a judge, and you have the proper training, because it's not only understanding what's happening there, it's understanding how a ring works, how a judge should behave, the ethics of being a judge, that some people might think that an 18-year-old is not mature enough to make those decisions. Yeah. As long as you are properly trained and that you are educated in what are you doing, I think every single national organization should have a path for these kids to train themselves and certify themselves as junior handling judges. I don't see any issue of that, as long as is there a proper training and a proper process to do that. I started my judging certification as soon as I turned 18 years old, because I was breeding dogs before with my mother, and even genetic projects were part of my science fair project. But I was able to do it because we had the proper channels and the proper training to do that. So it's not because you're young, you don't have the knowledge. You have to be proper trained and proper certified by your national organization, and to do everything under the regulations of your kennel club, and to not have any problems in the future when you want to certify yourself as a breed judge, for example.
Yeah, thank you. Linda, you're on the board of directors for the Irish Kennel Club, and I believe you've been tasked with a junior handling project. Would you like to explain what possibly lies in the future for Irish junior handlers?
Well, our tasking me with a junior handling project this time was a bit of a damp squib when COVID arrived on the scene. But hopefully we're looking at a YKC type project, with the hope that we can hold on to some of these older handlers that are thinking about leaving us when they get to 18. So, and to expand the sport a little bit more, so as we can do a few more different things, and maybe include some of those crossbreeds that they include in England in the YKC. I still would hold fast on the junior handlers on that one being thoroughbred, but you know, it gives kids a start. And Marina is right. Like, I mean, if they only come from a household where there is only this little crossbreed, everyone has to start somewhere. So with that in mind, if we can widen the sport a little bit more in Ireland and bring in a few more different things that the children can do, then, you know, it gives everybody a little bit more of an opportunity. So hopefully, with a little bit of help from the existing junior handling committee, we will be able to expand on things and get something more going for the children once COVID gives us a bit of space. But at the moment, we're kind of at a standstill. We can do it all on paper, but we can't put anything into action. So hopefully, when things improve now, we'll get started, and we'll get our suggestions down and see what we can come up with. I think the future is definitely bright. We've always been blessed in Ireland with really good junior handling association committees overseen by ex-junior handlers through the years. James Newman has been there all the way, Cleena Beattie. There's been, you know, yourself, Scarlett, you're there, Emer, you know the story. You never let the side down. You're a great team. And I think with the help of the team that's there at the moment, I'll be able to put something positive to the board, and we'll be able to work on that, and hopefully this time next year we'll be coming back with some positive results for you all to keep you busy.
Oh, fingers crossed. Marina, now that you're no longer a junior handler, what achievements have you gained outside of it?
Well, I think I remember the time well when in the UK, when you are a JHA member, as I said, it only goes up to age 16, and then the Young Kennel Club goes up to 24. But when I turned, 16 or actually 17, and I was out of the JHA, I'm not being funny. I was devastated. But I think as I had achieved by then, probably what most handlers eventually set out to achieve, which is to represent your country, I felt pretty satisfied with that achievement. So I was able to concentrate on competing further in the Young Kennel Club and the breed competition. I managed to compete one more time with the Young Kennel Club in 2000, so the Millennium Show at Crufts. Qualified for the Show Handler of the Year and won the 16 to 18 age group and came runner-up overall, which was really cool. I had quite a large break from dog shows after I became of university age. That Linda mentioned earlier, that we lose a lot of juniors, and I was listening earlier and thinking this is exactly what happened to me. Even though I was heavily involved in it, I had to basically get a career, because there's no careers in dogs, or mostly unless you want to go down the veterinary nurse path. But I wanted to be something else. So I had to have a large break from dog showing between sort of 2001 and 2004, when sort of 19 to 21, 22. And I had to move from Scotland to Bournemouth for university. my parents had retired to Spain, lucky them. So my dogs all went out with them. I was left, no dogs, no parents, gone to university, and I had no dog shows. And honestly, it was I'd fair say, it was a very depressing time of my life. It was a really strange time. I missed my hobby so much. And if I could convince my father now to have let me keep one dog back while I was at university, I would have done. I mean, if that's one thing I could have done, I would have done that now. I kept my eye in with the shows by reading the new dog newspapers. I think I could only afford one newspaper at the time. And funnily enough, it was Our Dogs at the time. Obviously, I ended up later working for Dog World. But and then I got a call from Vince Hogan, to the managing director of Our Dogs, to basically write a junior column. So I continued my interest in the dog scene while I was at university by writing a weekly or sometimes monthly junior column in Our Dogs. So I'm very grateful to Vince, because I think it's potentially, I could have actually never gone back to my hobby. And that's scary, because I've achieved so much ever since, and I love it. I always wanted to keep my involvement with the shows during university, and I did later return to dogdom when I graduated and started working as a broadcast journalist and radio news. And then my husband and I at the time, we bought our first dog together, so started our kind of new zone and all that. And then went from there really. But it's a really awkward time, because like we've been mentioned before, it's a hobby, it's not a career. Yes, there's lots of careers, and it's grooming, veterinary vets, absolutely there are some, but there's not actually going to dog shows to earn money. Nobody does that. We all do it for the absolute sheer pleasure of it. And I, for one, miss getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and packing all my show stuff the night before and driving 5 hours to get out at a muddy car park to open the door and see, oh, who's going to be parked next to me today? And it's always someone I know. And then for the rest of the day, I'm talking all day long, get back in the car, and then you go, oh, what a successful day. Or like Linda mentioned about the sportsmanship, you zip it about what you thought about the judging, and you sit in the car and you go, in the car if you wish to, or you moan at your mum or your friend on the way home. But you've got 5 hours to get that out your system, and by the time you get home you go, okay, what's in the diary, when's the next show? Rinse and repeat, please. So if the pandemic would kindly do one now, please, because I'm ready to come back with a vengeance.
And we're all getting there. Thank you. All right, Miguel, can you explain how junior handlers can become involved in the European Dog Show and the World Dog Show?
Well, of course, the organization of the World Dog Show and the European Dog Show, is a responsibility of the Kennel Club of that country. But you can get involved, and this is one of the things that I always tell friends and people who are in the sport. Don't be shy to get involved, and offer yourself as a volunteer. There's a lot of opportunity to learn from what happens at a World Dog Show. I've been to many World Dog Shows, and in every single one of them, I learned something new about the sport, about the dogs, about the country, about the organizers, because it's such a big project, and there's so many people involved there that it's not only people working together for the sport that we love, but also they're working together to represent their country and make sure that they are putting together an event that is to the levels of any world or international event. So they want to portray the best of their country. So get involved and make yourself available to volunteer on different things. If you're a junior handler or ex-junior handler, volunteer to work in the junior showmanship competition. You can be there just to be a supportive to delegates from other countries. You can be a translator. You can be a steward. You can just be there for support to the stewards. So don't be shy to get yourself involved. Offer yourself to the organizing committee so they know that you want to work with them, because that's the way that you're going to grow and learn from not only about the competition, but organizing this event. What's the efforts behind this huge event, and how you can actually be part of that if you want to continue your involvement, not only showing dogs, but also in the directive or organizing committees, because there's so much manpower behind these events that when you are just showing, you don't think about it. So always volunteering, it's very, very important for the organization, but you as an individual, as a handler, you're going to learn so much about the organization, about the competition, about the other competitors, but also learning about different cultures, different perspectives of the same sport. So take the opportunity and offer yourself as a volunteer if you have the opportunity.
Following on from that question, what is your personal thoughts on allowing the wild card to participate in the international junior handling finals, where throughout the year all the other participants have had to qualify?
Well, that's a tricky question, of course, because there's some kids didn't need to go to the qualifying competitions throughout the 4 days of the World Dog Show, and then you have these kids that come directly from their countries and they're in the final. So it might seem unfair to some, but these kids have been representing their countries at the World Dog Show, and they were qualified by their country. So I can see both sides of the coin, but again, that is something that we wanted to regulate as the FCIU to standardize, because every single World Dog Show, they do it differently, and they have different ways to qualify and to get there. So we really wanted to regulate that and make it an official rule, but because of how the FCI operates, of course, we cannot go to the individual and tell to the members of the FCI how to do things. It has to be a rule, and there's no such rule other than how to organize the junior showmanship competitions at section shows or the World Dog Show. So I think that every single country should follow one set of rules and not to change it every year, because the kids they want to know how to compete, and we need fair and clear rules for that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Marina, I'll go back to you here. What awards and achievements can be gained in the YKC and Junior Handling Association?
Okay, so well, in the JH, this is a very, very simple answer from me. In the JHA, it's simply the JHA UK Handler of the Year. In the Young Kennel Club, it's the YKC Show Handler of the Year winner. Yeah. Okay.
That's great. Short and sweet.
Oh, you don't get many of those answers from me, I tell you.
No. Linda, what advice would you give anyone starting junior handling?
Okay, well, I think that starting off in junior handling, the most important thing to remember is that this is a hobby, and keep it as a hobby. We've all had to start somewhere. Even if we were born into a family of dogs and judges and whatever else, we all started somewhere. So, when you go to your first show, don't be afraid to approach maybe an older handler and ask them to help you. Junior handling can give you some of your best and lifelong friends, that will stick by you through years in the dog game. And it's a lovely hobby. So I think don't be afraid to approach people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's plenty of help out there. Do your best to turn yourself and your dog out the best way you know how. And don't be afraid to take advice and learn. And if, take your criticisms from the judges, and don't even be afraid to go back maybe when the class is over and ask the junior handling judge what you did wrong, or how you can improve. We learn every day. All of us still learn. We go to shows with different dogs and we learn different things at every show. So you know, just the bottom line for me is to remember to try and be sporting. Remember, it's a hobby, and you know, not to be afraid to approach other handlers and find out what you're doing wrong, or you know, ask for help, because it definitely is worth it. And you can go from a 14-year-old handler with a Malamute maybe, who started off from scratch, to junior handler of the year representing us at Crufts, as you did, Scarlett, and winning your way to the top. So you know, we can all do it. So yeah, I think, you know, it's a great old hobby, so definitely stick with it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Marina, what words of wisdom do you have for current and future junior handlers of all ages?
Okay, so I would say a good attitude is everything to become a good junior handler. I honestly, I can swear by it. If you're polite to everyone, newcomers, judges, your rivals, and most of all your supporters, I don't think there's probably one piece of advice I'd ever say, but this probably is not. I think Miguel and Linda mentioned it at some point earlier, that as a young dog handler, as a junior handler, you learn geography because you travel a lot. I don't know if you've probably got people in your class who never traveled outside of their county before, probably not even their town. And here we are, you know, we've traveled to all parts of the world, probably by the time we were 15, 16. It also, life skills, you meet people from all walks of life, and you can communicate with anyone, from perhaps they might be a multi-millionaire or a celebrity, for example, maybe someone who is on the street that is homeless. I mean, literally people of all walks of life show dogs, and from all backgrounds, all careers. And I remember growing up as a junior handler, and I felt like, this sounds really weird, when I went back to school, I felt like I was sort of more mature than everybody else in my year group, because I could have adult conversation with lots of different types of people. So to me, a good attitude will set you up for life if you're polite to everyone. Listen to any advice that you're given, absorb it like a sponge. Do with it what you would like. You know, I don't know about you, Scarlett and Miguel, that, you know, when you were junior handlers, you might have read books, you might have had lots of tutors, you might have had lots of trainers, you had people you looked up to, you had people that perhaps you didn't so much look up to, but there was aspects of their life that you did. And sometimes people throw advice at you. Take on board everything you can, and don't just sift through it immediately. Take your time with that information, and maybe store it up there, because it might be useful at a later date. Watch and learn from others. There's nothing better than watching and learning. However, the only problem with that, and I say this at some training days sometimes you sit by the group ring, and perhaps newcomers will watch and learn from ringside, and they'll be thinking, right, okay, we've been told to sit by a group ring and watch all these great handlers, because every single best of breed winner in this group must be brilliant. Sometimes they're not as good as they should be, you know, so sometimes you'll pick up bad habits from watching others. Be supportive of everyone, regardless of whether they like you or not. Literally, it just doesn't matter. Let bad vibes just go over, whether it's to do with judging, junior handling, stewarding, whether you want to get involved or not. If there's bad people out there, just let it go over your head and move on, and be courteous and treat others how you would like to be treated yourself. I know probably all of that I've said is actually, it's about life skills. It's actually more character driven, but I genuinely do think that people like you, Scarlett, everything that I've said in that, the way that you're developing as an individual now is because you are everything that I've just said. So that's why I think you'll be in it for the long run. And I think the people with the bestest and the nicest attitudes and the supportive, polite attitudes stay in it for a long time.
That's good. Thank you very much. Miguel as well. What words of encouragement during our current COVID state could you offer junior handlers to keep them motivated?
What Marina said.
all of that, just all of that.
All
I steal your answer, Miguel? I'm sorry.
Kind of. No, but I think that we come from, the same path. We grew up here. We grew professionally and in a different career that is not dog related, but we're back here. And that's the best example of what this sport can do for you, and how you can develop your character and your life skills that you're going to need in the future. And I can speak to that. I've been fortunate enough to sit next to royals or celebrities or farmers and dog owners from Latin America, from Europe and Asia. And I feel so empowered to do that, and conduct business in my current job, because I have that life experience. So everything that Marina said, it's 100% true. In terms of what I can say to junior handlers in this era, and considering the new world that we're going to start living after the pandemic, it's our time as young people to get involved, to protect dogs and the dog breeds that we beloved from any circumstance, and work together as one team to protect the sport and the dogs. We have one connection. The connection between a human being and a dog, it's universal. You can see it anywhere, in Europe, in China, in South America, in Argentina, Brazil, in Puerto Rico, in the US. We all love dogs. Yeah. And there's no other way that you can enjoy a sport, a hobby, than doing it with your dog. Doesn't matter if it's junior handling, conformation, and obedience, and agility, and flyball. You're working with your dog. You're enjoying your partner. So I will encourage everybody to do it. Do it with education. Educate yourself to do things right. Be respectful for the people who came before us and have the knowledge about everything, because you need all that information. Not because it's not everything is on Google. You need that personal experience that the seniors in our sport know and have. So get advantage of that and get involved and respect each other. Doesn't matter if you're competing against each other, you're friends, you're doing this together. And the most important thing for me is to have fun. If you're not having fun, you're not in the right place. But I don't think you cannot have fun when you're working and playing with your dog. So.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, I think we're to the end of the set questions now. Thank you very much indeed. It's actually been very informative and very interesting to listen to. So I'll quickly move on to the questions, as we have a few here. And actually, in fact, this would be a quick one, I think, for you, Linda.
Okay.
And it's actually asking, may I ask how long it takes to become a dog judge? Could we say how long is a piece of string there? But anyway, I'll pass it over to you, Linda.
Exactly. How long is a piece of string? Yeah, I mean, you've got to have, well, where do you start? You need to be in a breed for a certain length of time. You need to have done your seminars, your stewarding. It takes a long time. I mean, you're talking at least 10 years in a breed before you'd even think of stepping in the ring with anything. And you've got to do your lower level shows and your seminars and your stewarding, and yeah, it takes a while. So yeah. I know I was a long time before I judged. Even though I was born into the world of dogs, I was offered judging appointments, and I just wasn't happy myself to do it, and I waited a long time before I stepped in the ring. So you've got to be comfortable within yourself too, and I think a lot of people nowadays rush to judge, which isn't good either. You need to have a good knowledge of the breed, and you need to have your education down before you do anything. And then it's a long road. The progression system in Ireland is a long road, as you know, Anne. To get to all-rounder status takes many, many years and a hell of a lot of work. So yeah, it's a long
I
road.
think the good thing about the IKC system is that at least there is a system. There are
There is.
progress that people can go through, which isn't always the case. I have a question here from Tony Moran. Without breeders, dog showing as a sport cannot continue into the future. How do the panelists believe that we as a sport can encourage young people to become breeders and stay with the sport? I'll start with you, Miguel, and that I'd probably ask you not to be too lengthy in your answers, because
Sure.
people need to go to it. Not me, honestly.
No, I think that it is a challenge in these days to encourage people to breed and to be part of a sport. It's just trying to reach out to people that are starting and encouraging them and protect them from any criticism, unwanted criticism, and just as organizations have a system in place for support and to education, because otherwise the internet can have so much misinformation about breeding that can confuse a lot of people. As organizations, we are responsible to educate future breeders, but I think it's challenging right now. At the same time, we need to start using what people are using. We cannot rely on all ways of doing what we do. How we can use technology to get more people in the sport, I don't have the answer, but I think that's something that every single organization should consider to try to reach more interest for the sport.
Actually, just to carry on with that theme, I'm over a lot of the judges' interviews through the year. There have been a lot of comments that the young people don't want to know and don't want to ask questions. Do you think that's fair comment? And how do we get across to the young people that the experienced people are knowledgeable and are willing to share that knowledge? Linda, would you like to comment on that?
Well, I think it comes back to us as the kennel clubs to try and run more seminars and try and get more involvement from the younger people, maybe inviting them to attend them rather than waiting for them to come to us. Maybe we should go to them and try and encourage them to come, even if it is sending out, by invitation or gathering them as a junior handling association and running seminars for the association itself and for the children at the association or the older teenagers. But we definitely do need to encourage. But I think if from a point of view of them continuing on and becoming breeders, I think, education, they must know that they have backup from their kennel club as well as a breeder. They need support. They need to know that we're here for them, and that the thoroughbred dog needs them as much as they need us. So yeah, I think it's all education, but I think we have to go to them as well as them coming to us.
Yeah, Marina, have you anything you'd like to add to that?
Not much more. I think that the guys have covered it, but knowledge and experience is a wonderful thing, but yet we want to encourage the younger generation, the young breeders of the future. However, of course, if they start showing an interest, then sometimes they get shot down in flames, don't they? Because they're showing too much interest. Perhaps they start doing something too soon, and then the older generation will go, well, no, that's too far too soon. So there's got to be this happy medium, and it's got to be guided from somewhere, and it can only be guided by probably the kennel clubs, who can have packs and packs of information. And of course, the world, as it's changed in the last year, has gone so virtual. Everything now is just virtual and online, so there is a wealth of information out there. I do agree with Linda that it's an element of both. They must know where to find it, but often they don't know where to find it, so they'll just Google it, and if it doesn't come up with their own local kennel club, it will be just some random site, and they think, oh well, what they say, because it's number one on the Google site, well, that must be true. So we need to basically guide them down to our kennel clubs, because that is the basis of where all this information and all the correct information, I think, is coming out of. So
actually, Scarlett, you're probably a good person too to comment on this, because to a degree you're the other side of the coin. You are the junior coming up. How do you feel that you can be helped in encouraged to be a breeder? I know you already are, but you've probably come up the harder way.
I think it's kind of the same when I said about Colm in Colm's interview when he asked. I think it's not just that kids don't want to learn, it's that they're scared to ask. I mean, I know myself, like if I go up to somebody, like even the likes of Linda's up there, she's well known, you all are. Me, when I was younger, coming up to you and speaking to you, it's kind of a scary experience, and you don't feel like you should be asking the questions, or you don't know if it's the right question to ask, and maybe you get scared and you back out. And even like Marina said, sometimes you'll go to certain people and they will shoot you down because they don't want to see, some people don't want to see the younger generation grow up either too quickly, or they don't want them to be as involved, so they don't give them that support. So it's like she said, it's a happy medium between both. The kids have to want to do it, and if they want to do it, they have to have the support there, and even the younger generation themselves should be supporting each other and not tearing each other apart. It's a hard topic to talk about.
Marina, as you have judged quite a few of the junior handler finders, I think you're probably a good one to answer this one.
Okay.
When you finish your up and down, do you stop before the judge and present, or do you return to the judge and then move away and present? It's from Megan Stack, age 12.
Okay, so hello Megan, thanks for watching. So when you do an up and down, I think Miguel has touched upon this earlier, is that in some countries it's slightly different. There's sometimes no rules. In the UK, we tend to go up and back. If it's just once up and down, you go up, turn, come back, and you would sort of push your dog out slightly to the left and bring it sideways. So it's side on to the judge, about 2 to 3 paces roughly from the judge. If you were to do 2 up and downs, you would go up, turn, come back. You would do an about turn, so keeping the dog on the same side as the judge's view, so you don't obscure the judge's view with your legs, even though they might be very nice legs. And then you turn around again, go up and back, and then you present side on, so you don't need to go around the back of the judge to present.
That's great, thank you. I think actually one of you certainly answered it, but I'll ask it again. This is from Donald O'Callaghan. Which are each of your favorite breed to handle?
Well, for me, it's the Whippets.
What did you say, Miguel?
Mine was the pointer.
Big long arms for that. And Marina?
Yeah, mine's not pointers or Irish setters. I don't have the arms for them. I've tried it and I just can't do it. No, probably Dalmatians. Honestly, they're so happy as that. I'm a happy person, and you can be yourself when you handle Dalmatians, to have that lovely wagging tail. You get full of personality out of them. Love it.
Oh, that's a good reason for liking a dog to handle. I'll start with you, Miguel. Who are the handlers that you each admire the most around the world?
Ooh, wow. Well, most of our influence comes from the U.S., of course. Puerto Rico being a U.S. territory, a lot of the influence comes from that. But I used to admire Jimmy Moses, that he used to handle German Shepherds for. Still is. So he was a show in the ring. So I love watching him. Also Linda Pitts, that it's a Cocker Spaniel handler, and now she's handling Poolies. I love the way how smooth she handles dogs, and it's all you see, it's the dog. So it's 2 different people that of handling styles that I really like. I never wanted to be a show in the ring. I wanted always the dog to shine. But I think growing up, those were the 2 main ones that will travel to Puerto Rico, and I will start looking at them and how they used to handle. So, but I there's so many people that are great handlers that I admire. Even younger than me. I think that Juan Miranda from Mexico, he's well known also around the world, but he shows his Afghans in such a way that it's so particular that it works for him. So not only he's a great person, but how he handles his own bred dogs, it's impressive to me.
Linda?
For me, growing up, I think it probably would have been Michael Code. I think he always had a fabulous rapport with any dog that he puts on the end of a lead. I mean, I knew him personally as a child and everything, and he could take any dog. It didn't matter what it was, and he even showed whippets when I was a child. He was showing whippets, and I mean, it didn't matter. It was whether it was Bichons, whatever it was. He's a fabulous rapport with the dogs. Everything from the dog himself, the picture to me is a picture perfect, and he always would have been somebody that I would have looked up to in the ring.
Anybody else?
Mine would be probably Mike Gadsby, phenomenal handler across many breeds, and also just a really nice guy, such a good dog man, but he is quite phenomenal to watch. I think I remember watching him with an Afghan hound at a show where I think it was Tejaz's Conquistador, the most fabulous looking Afghan I've ever seen. I think that's probably where my love of Afghans got in the early days, but never a good idea for someone like me, 5'2", to try and interview Mike Gadsby. I have to stand on a box to interview him, so he's not very good for interviewing. Gavin Robertson, I just think his partnership with Jilly, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago, Peekaboo, goodness me, what a fabulous partnership. But also he was brought up in Beagles, and I've seen him show from an early age. Melanie Harwood with her Minarets poodles, she has just such a quiet, unassuming manner. However, just the whole partnership with every dog she ever shows, especially Frankie the poodle that I've watched in the ring a lot, amazing partnership. And another one is Faye Bevis, and I've always admired Faye. She again gets the best out of her dogs, and Akitas are not easy, very stubborn, but I always still think I wish I could just go and tie her hair back. Like, sometimes it's so long, I'm like, I just want to tie it back to one side, but it's amazing how she can still get the best out of a dog where they have really long hair and it gets really long. But yeah, that's my fault.
Scarlett?
I'd say it'd have to be Javier Gonzalez. He's a well-known worldwide handler, and I've been up against Javier myself. I really respect that it's not even just the showing of the dogs that he does, it's the grooming, how he presents them. Him and Anta, they make a fabulous team. I mean, they're great together. Another one I thought of there a few seconds ago, and it's out of my head again. Oh, brain freeze.
It's been a long day for you, Scarlett. You've done so well.
We just call it COVID brain here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tip of my tongue there was.
It'll come back to you.
It's Katka Ruhat. That's who it was.
Who, sorry?
Katka Ruhat from Germany.
Oh, yeah.
She's another one.
I'll start with you, Linda. What do you like and dislike about judging junior handlers?
I don't have any dislikes about judging anything, to be honest with you. No, I love judging junior handling. I do. I really do. I don't have a dislike about it. I really enjoy it. I have to say, I enjoy judging, full stop. Anything. I really do. So I can't say that I have a dislike. There's not a lot in this sport that I dislike. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't have a dislike.
Miguel?
Yeah.
Have you any likes or dislikes?
I love being in the ring and seeing all the kids in the ring, because I know how much they train and prepare for that moment. So having them in the ring at that moment, it's pretty cool. But what I dislike is having to choose only one. That's the that's the thing that I dislike the most. And sometimes I dislike when you have a lot of older youngsters in the ring, and then you have the little ones in the same group, because they're just skipping the turning the age to go into the larger age group, but they still look very young compared to the big ones. So sometimes it's difficult like that. But other than that, it's such a pleasure to. I think I just enjoy judging junior handlers more than dogs. So.
And Marina?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Always have, always will. But I think probably my most favourite aspect of it is if you're on your judging table and you turn around, the steward has lined up all your class, and you think, right, what am I going to get today? And perhaps normally it's gobsmacking from the older age group class. So you'll turn around and you just see this lineup of the most outstanding handlers. Maybe there might only be 12 in it, but all 12 are like, whoa, this is going to be really tough, because you can just tell from that initial outlook, and it is so impressive. My slight dislike, actually major dislike, is when a junior handler will eyeball the judge. So instead of looking down at their dogs and working out, are they placed right? Is the top line looking nice? Is my dog's groomed correctly? And then out the corner of their eye, looking at the judge, it's the ones that are literally like that, staring at you, waiting for you to like pick me. No. Your dog is down here. We're judging a dog competition. Your dog is here. Look down, please, like that. So yeah, that's just my one tiny dislike, but it's a little tip for if ever I'm judging in your country, don't eyeball me.
I tell you, it's not just confined to juniors. So I'll turn the question around, Scarlett. What is a junior handler did you not like, or dislike in judges?
What I liked is, as competing myself, is the friends. I mean, the friendships you make.
No, sorry, I meant as you know, what judges do. Are there things that used to irritate you, or things that you really liked?
As judges, it'd be not looking at the dog is one main thing. I mean, judges going down, and because they already know the person, the young child is maybe a friend of a friend's child, and they don't bother looking at the dog, or they make comments, certain little snarky comments at the handler, you know, you could have done this, or you could have done that, and you should have done this, and you should have done that, and saying something that never actually happened, like, oh, you took too long. It's supposed to be patient. You're not supposed to rush anything. You're supposed to take your time, focus on your dog. Or saying, oh, you know, you would have had today's class, but you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. It's not supportive. If I would like to know what I did, I would go and ask, or if they say it in a different way, it would be maybe nicer, I guess. But doing junior handling myself, judging it, as Marina said, I don't like full-on staring and fake smiles. You can tell a fake smile. You can tell when the kid's sitting there going, hello. I'm like, no, I just want you to focus. The junior handling's all about the dog. It's the bond that you have, the rapport with the dog. That's all I want to focus on. Whether your dog's acting up, that doesn't bother me. I would like to see how you handle that situation. But just doing that, and the cocky attitude as well, is one thing that I just don't like. Walking in and being like, yes, I'm happy to be here. It's I'm here to win. That's it. Type of attitude. I didn't like competing against people like that, and I don't like judging people like that.
Just one last question, and I'll start with you, Linda. Do you think in you know, general dog showing world, is it harder for a junior to win in competition? I'm not talking about junior handling. I'm actually talking in confirmation classes. Do you think judges will tend to maybe look less favorably if a dog is handled by a junior?
Having shown since I was a child and coming all the way up through it, I think under certain judges, yes, you would definitely suffer. But I don't think it's like that anymore now. I think a lot of judges appreciate the quality of the handling now as well, and I really think that no, not so much now. I think they get a fairly good crack of the whip now, and you know, you see a lot of younger handlers coming through the breed rings and into the groups, and doing quite well with their dogs in the breed rings. And the majority of our junior handlers in Ireland show in the breed rings, and they do extremely well with their dogs. And they're up against adults, and these could be children of 10 and 12 years old, and they're in the breed ring, and they're doing their stuff, and they're making up their dogs, and yeah, they have it. And yeah, they're managing very well. I think there's a good attitude there now at the moment.
Yeah. Miguel?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I think that we can have like an hour-long conversation about this. But I think there's still judges that think that it's a waste of time to have juniors in the ring, not only in junior handling competitions, but in the main ring. I've seen it in person. It's not the majority, of course, thank God. But there's still older judges that think that having kids in the ring, it's a waste of their time. And the reality is that if you have a kid showing a dog properly, you're not judging the handler, you're judging the dog. So I think that it might still be a problem, but like what Linda was saying, we're seeing more and more kids that are doing such a fantastic job showing their dogs that there will be a time that everybody will be, will agree that it doesn't matter who's showing the dog.
And what do you think in the English ring, Marina?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changed and got better over the years. In my day, it was definitely more frowned upon. You could try and go in the breed ring as like an 8 or 9-year-old, and you have a really good dog, but you sometimes overlooked. I think it's like what Linda said as well, that some judges just completely overlook it and disregard you no matter what dog you've got. And that still kind of happens to this day, but like Miguel said, it's in the minority. I think we've produced so much good handling, and the Young Kennel Club and the JHA, I think we are producing fantastic handlers, and it's coming through in the breed rings and the group rings on a regular basis. And you can often find maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 in a group, at a champ show that handled by young handlers, and maybe young handlers, and I'm talking sort of 25 as unders, I suppose, because the Young Kennel Club goes up to 24, but really anyone under the age of 30, they are the new generation, to be perfectly honest. I'm not in that category anymore. I'm in the ancient category, however, but definitely it's so much better.
In actual fact, I think what did great credit to the younger generation, and I've forgotten her name, but that young girl with the Samoyed in the group at Crofts, when she trotted up the line when she was placed 4th, was it, to congratulate the winner? That went worldwide, actually.
That was little Lauren Bridges.
Yes, Lisa's daughter. I couldn't think of her name, but that was.
Yeah, she's been over here a couple of times in Ireland as well.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's known as small. She's not so small anymore. She's taller than me.
Anyway, we've come to the end of the evening and the end of the questions. And before I thank everybody, I'll just do a quick summing up, a very short summing up. What conclusions I would draw out of a very interesting discussion is Miguel in particular was talking about it, that wouldn't it be great if the kennel clubs brought out almost maybe not an exam, but certainly an education for the junior handling judges, rather than just saying, here, you do it, because it would be great for the juniors. It's also good to hear that most of the kennel clubs around the world, and when I'm using the FCI, are working to try and find new avenues to encourage the younger people. The other thing I think maybe we should all of the more senior dog people is actually try and make ourselves more approachable to the juniors, so that they're not terrified to stop us and speak to us. I mean, I know one of the things used to drive me mad when I was showing was, don't come and talk to me when I'm just about to go into the ring or getting the dog ready. But after that, I had no problem. So pick your moment. But certainly, I think you've given us all food for thought. And thank you very much indeed. It's been a great evening.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're all ready for a glass of your favorite tipple by now. Before we totally sign off, just to mention our next webinar will be on elbows and hips from Southview Veterinary Clinic. I know some of you tuned in to our last one. So we look forward to seeing you there. And thanks a million to everybody. All the best.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.